There's a bit of a dispute over how this game should be spelled in English. We can be pretty confident how it should be pronounced, Silviana, but is that first vowel an I or a Y? I went with a Y because I assumed that the title was derived from the English adjective Sylvan, but even there, spelling it with an I is an acceptable variant. The game's subtitle continues the process of maximizing confusion because it uses some very alternate pronunciation of the characters in it. If you follow how it says it's supposed to be pronounced, then the subtitle is I Ipai no Little Angel, or A Little Angel Filled with Love. But if you go by how the characters are usually used, then it's I Ipai Bokensha, or An Adventurer Filled with Love. Basically what it comes down to is that Pack-In Video's naming scheme is a huge mess. The plot of the game is that Silviana's mother is dying, and she's heard rumors of a special medicine that can cure any disease. So she heads out into the monster-infected world to try to find it. Silviana the game is an action RPG, and I'm going to freeze it right here. I want you to take a look at this screen and make a guess at which game Silviana is copying. At this point, there were a few very basic design concepts that people kept returning to for action RPGs. So which one did Silviana use? If you said ease, give yourself a point. Though if you said hide glide, there's enough overlap here that you deserve half a point. You fight monsters in Silviana by running into them. If you run into them at their back, they'll take a lot of damage and you'll take effectively none. They'll take a bit more damage if you hit them from the side, and a lot more damage if you take them head on. Unfortunately, monsters in Silviana are programmed to head directly toward you. So avoiding those head-on clashes is a lot harder than it sounds. When you defeat a monster, it'll drop a bag that contains some money, but there are no experience points here. You can't grind and level up. Instead, you have to improve yourself by purchasing equipment, or by finding special items that will increase your maximum health. So the game becomes a loop of grind for enough cash to progress, then move through the dungeon that acts as the next story beat. When you need health, you can go to your house and talk to your mother, or you'd go to a town and sleep in an inn. Silviana moves one screen at a time. You reach the edge, it flips to the next one. And every time you move to the edge of the screen, all of the enemies reset. So if you kill all of the monsters on the screen, then move off and come back, those same monsters are back again. And the position of these monsters is randomized. If they were blocking your way when you crossed in, sometimes just going back and forth is sufficient to clear the way. Though sometimes the monsters appear pretty much right on top of you, knocking you back across the screen transition. There's two ways that you save your progress in Silviana. One is a memory save, so your data is written to RAM, and then you can reload that point when you die, but this location information is lost when the game is reset. The other is to save to disk, and this takes longer, plus it kicks you back to the main menu when you do it. Like many of these games that offer the memory save function, you're really supposed to be relying on it, making small, incremental progress, and saving as you go. The nastiest thing in Silviana are the traps. Sometimes, and it's not consistent, there's a spot where you can step, and you get poisoned. And poison in this game doesn't reduce your health, it halves your movement speed. That also means you're going to take more damage in combat because enemies have more opportunity to turn into you. The only way to fix this is to use a special item. It doesn't get fixed by resting. You start with one antidote, but if you use that before you get to town to buy more, then you'll have to crawl along until you reach town. This actually made the start of the game incredibly painful for me, as I discovered that the very first action that you have to take is get to that other town. If you don't do that, and get poisoned when you don't have an antidote, getting to town is effectively impossible. Enemies just outpace you too quickly, and unless you're only 2 screens away, you're going to run out of health before you get there. The other trap that you'll encounter regularly are instant death traps. Step on the wrong spot, open the wrong chest, and it's an instant game over. There are magic eye items that will reveal traps, but they're kind of expensive. More expensive than antidotes, at least. So you're always better off saving often and using the antidotes than you are breaking out those eyes. The other significant item that you'll encounter early on is bread, and that's how you restore health. You can carry 9 of any consumable items at a time, and for exploring dungeons, especially early on, you'll want to go in with full stocks. To use an item, you hit select, which brings up the submenu. This is also where you go to save, and then highlight an item from your inventory. Hit select to go back out, and then you can hit the A button to use that item whenever you like. Well, I say whenever you like, but if there's ever a status message at the bottom of the screen, it prevents you from using items. So picking up money, even if you were standing on it after you defeated an enemy, that blocks using items. You can hit the B button to clear messages, but it still blocks you at the most inopportune moments. Dungeons are scattered around the world map, and you don't really have a great set of directions here. What it really comes down to is finding an area that you can survive in, and then going through that dungeon. So the upper left dungeon is really supposed to be the first one you go to, because there you'll meet a doctor who knows how to make the cure-all potion. And then there's a dungeon right next to your house that should be your second destination, and that's where you can get your first health increase. An important thing to know about grinding up cash to buy those upgrades that you need is that the enemies in dungeons drop a lot more money than the enemies walking around on the surface. In the starting areas that I poked around in, comparing enemies that were roughly of the same strength, the ones in dungeons dropped about 3 times as much cash as their surface counterparts. So take advantage of that while you're grinding. About a year after the FDS version's release, Hacken Video released an MSX version of Silviana that improves on the game a lot. That MSX version seems to be the more popular version of Silviana in Japan. The Disk System version definitely has its fans for being a cute and straightforward action RPG, but it's the MSX version that gets the attention. And I think this is actually a pretty solid game. I wouldn't call it top tier, there's a lot of stumbling blocks here, but definitely a game that once you know its tricks, you can have a good time with it.